There's some small delay, but I think this should end up working. Just give it basically how much Twitch have you used, by the way?
Not a whole lot. Like, we're new to it as of when we start doing these matches, and the guy that usually runs Twitch for us when we do it on our end is gone today.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so that's it. It sounds like that's similar to my level of experience, maybe a little bit less. Like, I only got into it about 2 months ago or something like that, so I'm still I'm very new to the whole process. All right, so it looks like things are live now, and so I'll just tweet out a link, and then I'm sure a few people will start showing up in the chat room and stuff like that. Let's just make sure that that's all good to go. Yeah, so probably just for people who are like starting to show up, I'm just going to wait a few minutes until a few people show up, explain exactly what's going on here, and then what we're doing with, and then I'm currently on the line with, what is it? It's three of the programmers from the DeepStack AI Legend team, right?
Yep.
Do you guys?
Martin Schmidt and Maciej Morawczyk.
Yeah. So So basically, we've got a couple of the guys in here who helped develop this AI who will be able to answer some questions as well. For anyone who's in the chat, you can go ahead, ask any questions. I'll try to answer some, but I honestly don't know much about this bot, so I'm just gonna play against it, see how things go, and hope for the best. Let me know if anyone has any feedback as far as like the resolution it's being streamed at or anything like that. Looks like we're up to 40 viewers so far. I'll still give it maybe another like 30 seconds, and then I'll start playing some hands. All right, so we've got Vprez Music, Denise002, and Nuage Rocks in the chat. Welcome, guys. Thanks for tuning in. So, wow, there's a lot of feedback already for the tweets from earlier today and stuff. Got 50 viewers now. Yeah, I'll just get started right now. So first hand, Queen 9 off. I'm gonna raise this. The one thing that you guys were telling me is that this bot it plays relatively quick. You said, right?
Yeah, it's kind of slowest early in the game. So pre-flop it's about 6 seconds or so to act. By the time it's on the river, it's about a second.
That's pretty nice, and kind of the opposite of other bots that I've seen. So that's definitely a nice feature. As far as hotkeys go, is there a way to like click the 0.5 button, or do you need to slide to get over to use the various betting options?
I think you can click just below 0.5 and that'll do it. You can set up hotkeys as well.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty nice then. Being able to click below, I like that. All right, we've got Gavando saying defend the honor of humans. Is this only a heads up AI? Yeah. So CT7. This AI only plays heads up. But the one thing it does that no AI has really done in the past is it plays heads up at any stack size. So rather than resetting at the end of every hand, it'll vary things. So that's very different from other bots that just know 200 BB. This one will be playing 5 BB, 50 BB, like any stack size. So he folded that pretty quickly. That's I don't know, probably one of the hands that I'm hoping to get called by there. I'll fold this against the 3x open. A lot of people showing up in the chat. Welcome, guys. So Sporadic Ruts says, could you give some background on what this is, Mike? Just a heads up bot. So I'll give a brief answer, and then I'll have Michael give a more thorough answer. Basically, I was contacted by the University of Alberta. That's the same university that solved heads up limit a couple of years ago, and they've built a bot that can play at any stack depth. And they've been contacting various Twitch streamers, and they're going to contact some more heads up players in the future to challenge the bot and see how different people stack up against the bot. So we're just playing, I think it's a best of 5 heads up matches today to see how things go. As far as a more detailed overview, do you want to give a more thorough description of things?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So DeepStack is it tries to play a good game theoretic optimal strategy for the game, and it's not perfect, but it's kind of our best attempt that we have so far. So it's not trying to do any opponent modeling. It's not changing hand to hand. It plays every hand the same way, kind of in isolation from all the other hands. And yeah, CT7 just asked if it shows its cards, and yeah, it always shows its hand at the end of the hand, even if it folds. It does not get to see Mike's cards if he folds.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. So I guess it doesn't really make adjustments based on the things I'm doing, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so even if it saw your hand, it wouldn't do anything different with it.
Okay, interesting. And the one question I know that you answered for me yesterday that some other people might be interested in, it doesn't pay attention to timing tells or anything, so that makes my life a little bit simpler. I'll fold this. This would probably be one of the weakest hands that open here. DNice002 says, I would love to try this. That's a good question. Is this bot publicly available for other people to try yet? And if not, is there plans for it to be at some point?
It's not right now, but yeah, we're thinking about it. Right now, we only have it playing every week against pros. With our previous bot, the one that solved heads up limit, that one we have set up on a web page that anyone can go and play against it, or ask it what it would do in any spot in the game. And we're thinking about doing like the play versus DeepStack at some point, but it's not right now.
Yeah, that's I guess that's it. Yeah, I think that's something that long term people like. I remember playing a little bit against the limit hold'em bot and thinking it was pretty damn cool having the opportunity to play against it. Trying to think about that. I'm supposed to bet this one again. Yeah, I'll bet it again. Alright, so he'll look me up fairly light there. Alright, DeepStack takes the first decent sized pot. Hold that. Castillas asks, is this the same bot which Doug Polk played? No, so that would have been basically. Would you guys consider them to be like competitors to you, or do you guys collaborate at all, or what's the relationship like between different universities that have built poker bots?
Yeah, we know them really well, and it's collaborative and competitive. For about the last 10 years, we've had an annual computer poker competition. So every year, all the universities and a lot of hobbyists and stuff get together and submit bots, and we play them all against each other. The nice thing about that is most of the bots play really quick. And so when we're trying to measure if one bot is stronger than another, we actually play tens of millions of hands. And so we get these really accurate win rates that flush out a lot of the luck.
Right.
So yeah, we've been playing against the CMU team for about 10 years. Our two universities were the two kind of founding universities of that competition. So yeah, it's a different bot than the one Doug played against, because Claudico and Libratus were CMU's bots. This one is ours. We haven't played ours against theirs, at least not yet. And we both think that ours is the strongest, of course. Like that each of our own bots is stronger than the other.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it's got to be it's got to be interesting just having other people working towards the same or similar goals to keep it friendly but still competitive.
Yeah, and it really helps us make progress fast, right? Like every couple of years, we'll come up with some new idea, or they do, and then we get to feed off each other that way.
Right. Sporadic Ruts says, "How would you rate your heads-up game, Mike?" I'd say my heads-up game is decent. It's by no means world class or anything. I would say it's basically quite good for a tournament player, and I'm going. Guys who have put as much time into poker as I have, who are heads-up specialists, will definitely have a pretty strong upper hand. This might be tight. All right, so we got the blinds up. So how does the structure of this work, by the way?
Yeah, it's every 10 hands. You can click. Yeah, in the top right corner, if you kind of click that down arrow where it says hand 11, then they'll show you more info on the hand. And then you can click blinds to see the blind schedule.
Blinds. Okay, so yeah, it looks like a pretty normal structure. Doesn't really skip too many levels. How for other matches that you guys have done, how many hands has the average match taken?
It seems like it goes usually 60 to 80 hands,
Okay.
Unless something really crazy happens and it's all in early.
Right. That's no fun. Okay, let me think about this. So he's raising the river. He needs this river raise to work half the time. I don't think I'm too high up in my range or anything. I'll just fold this. Okay, so he just owned me. All right, so he's willing to go for it. That's pretty badass raise right there. That's one thing I found really cool when watching the Lebratus match is just how willing to pull the trigger the bot is in a lot of situations. When it for them they don't have the cognitive biases like for me and a lot of poker players like you see a river raise and it's likely to be a good hand kind of thing. But the bot doesn't think that way. It just thinks what's the most profitable thing to do. It doesn't have. It thinks on a much deeper level. Perhaps that hand there was too big of a hand to fold. Oh, so here's a question. So when it came to programming the bot, were there any sorts of rules that you guys plugged into it, or were there? Did you just kind of just let it figure out strategies entirely on its own? Like, were there any guidelines, or how did that work?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, for all of back to about 2007 forwards, all of the really strong bots that have been made pretty much figure out the game just by playing against themselves. Earlier than 2007, a lot of the bots had to use like programmer introduced rules to kind of give it some guidance on how to play. And even rules that you think might be good usually harm the bot in the long run.
Oh, really?
So 2007, that's when we were able to, like, the algorithms got good enough and the computers fast enough to just let the bot learn how to play on its own. And that's what we're doing with this one. Like, I think the only real programmer knowledge that went into it is telling it what bet sizes to consider.
Okay.
So when you act, it can figure out what to do with any bet size you make.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's its turn, it's only going to make half pot and pot bets on the pre-flop, flop, and turn.
Mm-hmm.
And on the river, it'll also consider a two-pot bet.
Okay.
I think those sizes are the only thing that we just told it what to consider.
Okay, gotcha. So it does. So I remember when watching the Lebratus, it would not regular, but it would occasionally just bet like 10 times the pot. This one, it doesn't go as ham as far as the completely wacky bet sizes.
It shouldn't. It'll really only consider those 3 bet sizes plus all in.
Okay.
Yeah.
People in chat are saying I got wrecked there. Yeah, that's the bot is off to a pretty good start against me right now. So I'll check this one back. show that down. Ooh. Threes is definitely not a hand I was expecting it to have a high percent of the time there. Glad I had ace 4 instead of like ace 5 or something. I'll fold this to a pot size c-bet. I would have called this against a smaller c-bet. Bite Boop says, must be nice to 3-bet and hit a set. Yeah, pretty much my thoughts too. Against a full pot bet, I think I probably would have called this against like 3/4 pot or something. I'll fold it to a full pot bet. Maybe that's too big of a fold. So he says, no, with the back doors there. So it seems like his larger bet sizes on early streets so far have been relatively polarized. Like some, you know, he had 9 high twice, and he had a set in a 3-bet pot that was pretty well disguised. So I guess he's probably, I mean, obviously it's a super small sample size, but it looks as if right from the get-go, it's likely trying to polarize things when trying to get the pot big, even on early streets. Not an ideal turn card. Not a great river card either. So it's definitely a much, it's quite active with the 3-betting pre-flop. I saw when I was playing a practice match at 3-bet, like, you know, 10-9 off, pocket threes, 3-bet the king 10 off there. So it's probably 3-betting a much larger percent than I typically would. And basically I would guess that I need to combat that by doing some more 4-betting, where it's, you know, 3-betting just a pretty wide range of, you know, strong, medium strength, and weakish hands. Afalakita18 says, will the bot recognize if we have tells on him? No, it won't. The bot doesn't adjust based on what's happened in the match. Call this. Oh, this is his first time. So does he do this sort of like finicky bet sizing, like taking a chip off or adding a chip on? Does it do that very often? This is the first time I've seen it do that.
Every now and then it'll drop by 1 chip just by a rounding error.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not on purpose and it's not tricky. It's just like a pot size bet that it multiplies wrong.
Okay, that's funny. Ghost of M says, do I feel any pressure knowing that bots have wrecked so many pros? Honestly, I'd say that makes me feel less pressure, because this feels like you know, a bit of a David versus Goliath kind of thing, where I'm not I feel like I have something to gain and not that much to lose. Just, you know, given the era we're in 2017, I don't really know if humans are supposed to beat computers at much these days. So I'm not. I kind of feel like, you know, if I can variance my way through this and do well, that's, you know, that's great. But I certainly don't have high expectations. Pretty good flop for me. Not a great turn. All right, I probably have the best hand here, the vast majority. My bet sizing is probably not good against a computer. Like, the computer will be way more balanced than people will be as far as checking an 8 on the turn. I think that I you know, played that river fairly poorly with the 10-9. So I've noticed two of his limps have been 6-3 off and 7-4 off. So it looks as if, and then I know when I played it earlier in the practice match, it like limp re-raised with limp re-raised with like maybe ace-4 off or something like that. So it has it probably has a couple types of hands. I would guess that me raising fairly big over limps isn't ideal when you can have so many junky hands. Like, my plan was to raise 3.5, 4x over limps. I should probably bring that down to, you know, 2.5 or 3x or something when it has, you know, more trash. I'll check this. Lil Dog Pocket 2s ask, does the bot ever overbet? Yeah, it'll overbet 2x pot sometimes on the river. I haven't seen it do that yet, but I also haven't been to that many rivers against it yet. Okay, so here's a good question for you. Do you have any prediction on when No Limit Hold'em will be solved?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the answer is maybe never.
Okay.
So heads up limit, if you look at just all the spots you can make a decision in the game, so every path of betting, every set of cards that can get dealt, the game has about 10 to the 14 decision points. That was a size that we were just barely able to solve in 2015, and memory is a big constraint there. Like, just the amount of RAM that you need on your computer to solve that size of game, like, that was the biggest bottleneck that we had. And so even computing that strategy, even when we had a computer big enough to fit into memory, we had to spread it across 200 machines through almost 1,000 CPU years at it, meaning like 1,000 years worth of computation, except that we used like thousands of CPUs to do it faster. Heads Up No Limit is just enormously huge. The game that you're playing right now, like as of the first blind level, where it was 200 blinds deep, instead of 10 to the 14, it has 10 to the 160 decision points.
Holy shit.
Incredibly fast. Like, there's something like 10 to the 80 atoms in the universe, right? So 10 to the 160 is enormous. So as far as being able to actually solve it and prove that you solved it, I think that's just out of reach. The game is way too big.
Okay.
Now, we think you can probably get awfully close without having to solve a problem that size, right? Like, you don't actually care about the difference between, you know, a 102 chip bet versus a 103 chip bet.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to simplify it and get most of the way there.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get awfully close, and I think, I think we might already be better than the best human players. Like I think Libratus demonstrated that pretty well back in February. And we did a similar experiment against a team of 33 pros back in November. So I think we can definitely aim to beat humans, and we can try to get close to solving it. We don't even have a good technique right now to measure how close we are to solving it in no limit. Like we can kind of get a lower bound to say it's beatable for at least this much, but maybe more. But that's still not the same as knowing an exact number. Like you are beatable for this much, and that's how close you are to optimal.
So when you talk about the lower bounds, like how do you guys go about calculating that? Basically, like how is yeah, I remember seeing something with when Libratus was doing it, where they said that like their bot is exploitable for 50 BB per 100 or something. Like how do you calculate that? I guess.
Yeah, it was a lot easier in heads up limit. So in heads up limit, the game is small enough that you actually can just go and compute this, and it's not easy. Like it's about a 76 CPU day computation, which means if you use 76 computers, you can get it done in one day.
Okay.
So that's way simpler than solving it,
yeah.
But it's it's still doable. So in heads up limit, it was kind of neat because we first found out how to do that in 2011, and then we were able to look back over all the bots we'd ever made for the 10 years before that and measure exactly how beatable each one was.
Yep.
So if we actually solved the game, then the strategy would be beatable for 0. Like it would tie against that worst case opponent.
Right.
And so you can kind of measure your progress towards that by measuring, how much improvement you're getting on driving that worst case loss down towards 0.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so for heads up limit, we can actually just compute it exactly. Like, and we know it's beatable this much, that's it. For no limit, we don't have a way to do that just because the game is still way too big.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we can do is come up with a counter strategy and say, okay, what if we use this counter strategy against the bot? And we measure how much the counter strategy wins.
Mm-hmm.
So if the counter strategy wins for like 10 big bets per 100, then we know, okay, well, it's beatable for at least that. An even better counter strategy might win more. So now we have at least a lower bound. We know it's beatable this much.
Right.
So that's about the best we can do in no limit. So right now, we don't have any known counter strategy that wins against DeepStack. So it's still possible one might exist that we just haven't computed yet.
Yeah.
But using all of our best tricks that work really well against older bots, they still don't work against DeepStack.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, because DeepStack was a big step over the earlier ones. Like even bots that we had back to like 2012 and 2013, they were beatable for more than a big blind per game, like way more. Like some of them beatable for more than 3.
Oh wow.
Which is like enormous. And you might think, well, that's awful. Like couldn't possibly be good. Except even then, those were bots that we'd played against human pros, and were pretty close. Like the pros still had an edge, but it wasn't a blowout. It certainly wasn't like 3 bets per 100, or sorry, 3 bets per game.
Right.
Yeah, so being able now with DeepStack to say we can't beat it with any other algorithm that we know is, we think, a big step.
Right. Yeah, that seems like a pretty massive development. So Pierre XPT says, "Who's the other guy?" Do you want to reintroduce yourself, and then I'll also put that in the stream title.
Yeah, sure thing.
Cool.
Yeah, so my name is Mike Johansson. I'm a researcher with the University of Alberta Computer Poker Research Group, and I have been since about 2005. So I've been at this for a long time. Also on the call here, we have the 2 main programmers behind DeepStack, Martin Schmidt and Maciej Moravsik, who are in Prague in the Czech Republic. So they're available to answer questions too if anyone has any specifically for them. And our whole team is like 10 people big. We have other programmers and other researchers that aren't on the call right now as well.
Right, I'll just add that to the stream title. So here I isolated the limp with the 8-3 off. He's thus far been limping a lot of quite weak hands. So I wanted to bring down my bet sizing. Like he's shown down, maybe 4 or 5 limps he's shown. He showed 10-3 off, 7-4 off, and 6-3 off on 3 of them. He calls my raise and then bets pot on the flop. I'll call this. Pretty bad turn card for me. Sweet. So I know when I played it earlier, it limp raised something like ace-4 off, and then it limp called the ace-7 up. That's a little interesting there. Oh, so here's a good question that Lil Dog Pocket 2's asked. Does betting a weird size against this bot make the bet interpret it as a bigger size? His example is if he bets 651, could the bot think that it view that like as if you bet 700?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of the earlier poker bots that we and other groups made, actually everything up until DeepStack, that style of attack did work. We called that a betting attack. And really what that was about was in order to simplify the game enough to make it a size that we could solve, it really had to simplify the betting a lot. And so yeah, exactly that style of attack, like betting something not quite a normal size, meant that the bot had to pretend it was one of the sizes that it knew about. So there were a lot of attacks like that, like betting an 11 pot bet, where it would try to, oh, that looks like an all-in, so I'll respond as if the guy went all-in.
Yeah.
And that was just a devastating attack on the earlier bots. DeepStack is resistant to that type of attack. So no matter what bet size you make, it resolves the rest of the round or the rest of the game using the exact pot size and bet that it's facing. So it always knows what your bet size means.
Cool. As soon as the blinds got up to 200, 400, I've had like 8-3 off or worse almost every hand. This bot's good at making you go card dead when the blinds get high. That's not actually an accusation or anything like that. Alright, this is the first time all match that I'm up on chips. I would guess that I'm probably down over 50 big blinds so far, but I've managed to win chips at the 150, 300 level after losing a bunch at the 50, 100 level. Have you guys looked at that so far? What the average BB per 100 is of your bot so far? Like how it's, because I know you mentioned that it's won most of the matches. Have you looked at what the win rate's been so far?
Yeah, good question. For the freeze outs we've been playing, I don't think we have looked at that. We played like earlier on when it was. We did a study in November where it just played 200 deep, like with resetting the stack every time. And we played against a group of 32 pros. That one, the win rate that we had was enormous.
Okay.
I think it was actually 49 per 100, which sounds like impossible.
Yeah, that's a pretty good win rate. That's sick.
Yeah.
And that's is that across the board, or is that just at 200 BB deep?
That was just 200 BB deep.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I was going to say it's much easier to do that when you have the ability to win stacks. Like, if you're playing, sit and go format where you're often going to be, like right now winning 50 big blinds deep, I'm guessing my win rate is a lot less terrible against it than it would be, as you get deeper and deeper, where I think computers will think about those complex situations so much better than humans will. So that was, and has it been? Oh yeah, I guess one question I have is: are you guys still actively making changes to it?
Not just yet. Yeah, the bot that's been playing for all the Twitch matches has been the same, like with no changes other than like a bug fix, I think, but nothing strategically important.
Okay.
We're talking about more improvements we can make on the back end, and there's definitely still room we can improve for heads up. I think the next thing we're going to look at is multi-win.
Okay.
But that's going to be a ways off, like probably a year, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, so how do you think that? How much more complex of a problem do you think it is to make a 9-handed bot? Like, do you think it's something that will be done, in 2017 or before 2020, or when do you think it'll be that there are competitive 9-handed bots?
Yeah, good question. It's brutally tough multi-way, and it's tough for two reasons that are really different. The one reason it's tough that you probably can expect is it's just the size of the game, right? Like there's so many more ways the betting can go, or combinations of who folds and who's still in. Like that part just absolutely blows up the size of the problem. So that makes it tougher. I've heard, kind of counterbalance that a little bit, that heads up is often tougher because you have to play so many more hands. Whereas if you're playing like at a 10x table, 10-hand table or something, it's a little bit easier because someone's going to have a good hand, so it's not quite as important to play all the time.
Right.
But there's also the second reason why it's difficult, and it's just difficult mathematically. So the whole style of approach that we use and Librettis uses, and really all the good bots use, is to play a good game theoretic strategy. So that means trying to come up with a strategy that can't lose, even if your opponent knows what you're doing. That the best your opponent can hope to do is tie.
Right.
So that's what we did in Heads Up Limit. That's really the driving motivation behind DeepStack and Librettis and all the other good bots. And the problem is that you can only get that guarantee if you're in a Heads Up game. Like if you're in a Heads Up game, we have a good algorithm for computing that style of strategy. But as soon as you add even one more player to the table, there's no way to come up with a strategy that's guaranteed to not lose, no matter what both of your opponents do. So there is still a type of strategy we call a Nash equilibrium, which is what poker players usually call GTO.
Yep.
That still exists, but it doesn't have the useful theoretical properties about being guaranteed to not lose. All it means in a multi-way game is that nobody can improve their winnings if they're the only one to change.
Okay. But
of course, if you have two opponents, then they can both change at the same time, and even both try to gang up on you to exploit you.
Right.
That could be collusion, like actual cheating, or it could be unintentional collusion, like the type of thing that happens in tournaments where maybe two people really just want to flush out the third to increase both of their own chances of winning. And as soon as you get to a 6-player table, it's even tougher. Like, the theory that we rely on to drive all of this just kind of doesn't apply anymore. The good news is that the algorithm that we use, like what DeepStack is doing now, it's not guaranteed to be unbeatable, but it still appears to produce really strong strategies.
Okay.
So we've done some experiments with 3-player limit hold'em in the past, and the strategies that it's come up with for the 3-player game seem to hold up well against human opponents. So to get back to your question, because you were asking about when's it going to happen that we can, actually play 6 maps.
Right.
Yeah, as far as being able to prove like this is the perfect way to play and no one can beat it, like that's actually just not possible. So we can never make that style of thing. But we can still try to come up with a strategy that's beats human pros, and I think that might be only a couple of years away.
Okay.
Using what we learned from DeepStack, I think we're getting pretty close.
Oh, that's interesting, and that's kind of exciting to see that it could be in the near future, like so close in the near future. So this I just won the first match against DeepStack over here. The blinds got pretty high, and then I won 60-40 against it. Should I just restart? So is it typical to just restart the match, or is it typical to go over a couple of the hands, or what normally how do you guys normally format this?
Yeah, usually we just continue to the next one, but it's up to you. If you want to talk about some stuff, we can do that.
I mean,
or if you go to the next one, just restart match.
So I guess I'll talk about this hand briefly, and something that I find kind of cool about what DeepStack did here is I would guess that DeepStack has looked at strategies for playing out of position. At 20 big blind stack sizes, you'll usually have two bet sizes. You'll usually have an all-in bet size, and you'll have like a small raise bet size. And what ends up happening is typically your all-in bet size will be a bunch of hands that are medium strength, like hands like this ace four, pocket threes, things like that. And then your smaller raise size will be your strong hands where you want to keep the guy in, and then there'll be your really weak hands where you want to like push out his 6-3 offsuit and stuff like that. So basically, I think what DeepStack is probably relatively aware of what ranges might be like here, to where it made this call with 9-8 suited, knowing that it's a favor over pocket threes. It's not too far behind like an ace four offsuit or something like that. And it's probably it's. I think that basically this probably looks a little crazy to people in the chat, but there's a lot of situations if you run the numbers against ranges that don't really have any particularly strong hands in, where these hands like 7-6 suited through 10-9 suited kind of thing just do fairly well. And it's it's one of those things like it's quite likely DeepStack has a big enough edge over me that he'd profit more by waiting for a better spot kind of thing. But obviously a computer isn't it all. Poker players are really bad for this, where they try to overestimate their edge and they keep waiting for better spots. There's no situation where DeepStack will try to maximize. It'll never give up one in the hand for two in the bush kind of thing, right? Like it'll never. I'm assuming it'll never pass up something where it thinks it's winning one chip because it thinks its win rate is higher by just playing more hands by lowering the variance.
Yeah, okay, I think I get the question. When it's deciding what to do for future hands, I think it's just using the independent chip model to figure out its odds of winning in future games.
Okay.
I don't think there's any bit that's really thinking about variance.
Yeah.
But I'll think about the expected value of doing a move right now versus waiting until later and using what's left of its stack.
Right. Because that's something. I mean, it might be tough to program a computer to do this, but when say the Lebradas challenge for just playing 200 BB deep, the best thing is just capitalize on every profitable situation. But here, if you have a 49 BB per 100 win rate against the average opponent, I would guess that his call there probably profits something along the lines of 1/10 of a big blind or something like that. Where it may end up being more profitable for him to just, if he just knows that he's better, to just, fold that, knowing that, if he calls there, the tournament's going to be done 50% of the time, and be guaranteeing that you get a next hand, it'll decrease his BB per 100, but increase his percent chance of winning the match if he has a sufficiently large, if there was. This might be insanely difficult, but I think that if you wanted to maximize win rate, it could be decent to estimate your chances of winning before the match begins. So, if you're playing Doug Polk, maybe you put in 51%. If you're playing against, someone terrible, maybe you put in 65%, and then the bot would need to then kind of think about its win rate before, let's just say on the first hand it wants to call all in with a gutter and a flush draw or something like that. Maybe it shouldn't do that if its win rate is large. If its win rate is large enough against a sufficiently bad opponent, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I absolutely agree. Yeah, that if it's playing against someone that it expects is weaker, then that should change how it plays. Because it's not doing opponent modeling, and because this one is trying to play GTO, it's playing every hand assuming essentially that it's on the other side of the hand, like someone equally as strong.
Right.
And so, that leads it to make these decisions where it probably could profit quite a bit by assuming it'll do better in the future than it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Huh. This is an interesting spot right here. Leads up for half pot. feel like I guess if I'm calling this, his bluffs probably have hearts in a decent amount of the time. Yeah, I guess this is probably just, even though this hand is reasonably strong, I think it just, the fact that some of his bluffs would be like, queen 2 of hearts, queen 9 of hearts and stuff like that. I'll just fold this. Sweet. Call this queen 7 off as one of the weaker hands I'd call. I'm not sure. I guess I'll call this. I'm not super excited about it. All right, so here's the first overbet of the match. I think I'm just going to fold it here. A little interesting. I guess he would be... I'm trying to think of what types of hands he would be bluffing with here. I guess it's sort of a spot where he can kind of bluff whatever he wants to bluff with, but I'm trying to think what blockers he would be most likely to do this with. I have no idea. I'm just going to fold and then just see what he has. All right, king, queen. So yeah, I'm not like, I think that's a spot where me having some check raises there, I don't think is too unreasonable. But I'm not repping a ton, but I think I'm kind of repping a king 10, king 9. So I'd probably hands with a blocker to a 10 or a 9 are probably a lot better than having a blocker to a 7, I would think. Call this. So Will Dog Pocket 2s asks, if you went all in on the first hand, what would it call with?
Oh, good question. I haven't actually done up a chart for what its calling range would be. I know when we played against Dutch Boyd 2 weeks ago now, he had a strategy he was using. He figured that the bot was better than he was. And so he was just trying to run up his stack. Like, he either wanted to win big or lose fast.
Right.
And so his strategy was, with any hand, aside from a good hand, he would go all in every hand for the first 30 hands.
Okay. That's pretty funny.
It actually wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that definitely leaves a lot of value on the table. Like, it's not a move you would do against anyone else.
Right.
But I think if you actually do believe that the bot's better, and all you can hope to do is get ahead before the stacks, before the blinds increase, then it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's not too bad if it's going to only call like queens, ace, king suited or whatever it happens to be. Like, I think that's not too bad of a strategy. I think with 2 pair and a spade blocker, I'm going to call this. fold to the pot bet here. I think that's pretty. I think it's pretty good on a board like this for him to bet big the majority of the time. Yeah, it's tough for me to win the pot against that hand. I'm gonna race through it because he's been lumping so many junk hands. So he's called a few times, so I could have just been running hot at seeing how bad of hands he was limping, I guess. So it's probably less. I still think it's quite polarized, but less bluff heavy, or less like super light hand heavy than I originally would have guessed. I'll call this. And I'll fold that. Oh, so he called. So that's interesting. He called. So he limp called 5-3 off pre. So I guess when stacks are this deep, I should probably still keep the raise sizing a little bit bigger. Maybe keep it small if I have a really good hand, and big if I don't, because that's a quite a light limp call there. And given the bot's doing it, it's probably right to do it. But I was a little surprised to see a hand that light in his limp call range. Decide what I want to do here. I have a lot of semi-bluffs here. Go bet this one twice. Might be a little thin. Back. Pretty great turn card. There's just so many kind of no equity hands I can have here. There's a lot of room for him to just call with, queen high or something like that. As far as how I want to size this, let me think about this for a second. He still has plenty of ace-x. I don't have as much ace-x as him, I imagine. He has a lot more queen-high, jack-high. Don't think I want to value bet this super thin. I'll bet maybe like 2/3 pot. So he folded king high on the end. That's a fairly big fold by him. There was one other fold it made against me when I was playing like a practice game against it that I was a little surprised by. Like I tend to just assume bots are just going to station off every spot possible. But this one is definitely it's probably been something where it has blockers, or I guess like anti-blockers that make the hand worse than it appears or something like that. Where basically there's been a couple times I was surprised to see it fold a hand that was reasonably strong absolute value wise, but most likely what's happening there is it would also call some weaker hands absolute value wise that don't have blockers hurting its hand, and the computer can wrap its head around the situation and I can't basically, but I would assume that's what's happened in a few of these spots. I'll bet turn and river here most of the time. Do I want to bet pot or do I want to bet over pot here? Let me think. I'll probably just bet pot. It's not going anywhere there. Oh, we need to bet like... Yeah, I guess that could be the type of hand that he sometimes folds because the 8 blocks a lot of my bluffs. It could be betting 2x pot he folds there. Originally I was thinking I'd need to bet like 4x pot or something, but I think that he may, you know, fold king 8, call king 3 or something like that if I bet 2x pot. Maybe even call like 10-3 and fold king 8 or something. I think I'll call this here. I don't know, but I think as far... I imagine I have a lot of hands kind of in this sort of tier of hand, and I think that if I have something like an ace-7 or an ace-10, like I think his river bluffs are a lot of no equity bluffs. A lot of hands with 6x would have bet the turn, so I think ace-6 is kind of the best type of ace to be calling here. So if I'm going to be calling it any ace-x, I feel like this allows the most bluffs to be there, so... It's pretty thin value bet by him. Oh, no, it's not very thin. Sorry, I'm stupid. Whoa, that was a misclick. Pseudonym 3 asks, where can I find information about this bot? Will you want to talk a bit about like your website address and you know, various places that people can find out more about the DeepStack bot?
Yeah. So our webpage for this is deepstack.ai. So on that webpage we have videos of all the matches we've played so far against other pros. What else? We have hand histories of the big match we played in November, about 45,000 hands against 33 pros. We also have a copy of the paper. The paper published in Science, which for scientists is kind of like the best spot to publish. You know, no matter if you're in physics or chemistry or biology or anything. So the paper that we have there is a pretty good, easy introduction to the algorithms and the technology behind the bot.
Cool. And how many people are on the team that helped build the bot?
I think we're about 10. So there's me and Martin Mache who are on the call right now. Martin and Mache were the 2 main programmers behind it. Who else? William is in Prague. Michael Bowling's our team leader. Nolan, Dustin, Trevor, Neil, Kevin. Yeah, so about 10 of us. Most of us are students or ex-students at the University of Alberta, where we did our PhDs and master's degrees working on this. And Martin, Mache, and William are all in the Czech Republic. Martin and Mache are PhD students right now, and William is a brand new professor there.
Cool. How did you guys end up getting coordinated with guys in the Czech Republic?
We met them at a conference. What was it, about 2 years ago now, Martin? I think we've known them for a lot of years. They were competitors in the computer poker competition, and we knew them through that. And then we talked at a conference a couple of years ago because they had the idea for what turned into DeepStack. So after talking to them there, they came and spent a year in Edmonton with us at the University of Alberta, and that's what made it possible.
Cool. Oh yeah, this is kind of a random question. Do you know David Churchill?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah. He's a friend of mine. Basically, are you familiar with like the game Prismata that he was helping to build, or no?
Yep. Yeah. I know about Prismata. I know about his StarCraft work too.
Yeah, so basically, a couple of my friends are the guys that started the company Lunar Studios that built Prismod and then hired him as the AI developer. So those are just guys I've known since we're like 12 years old, kind of thing. But yeah, so I know David pretty well through that. I know he was at the he was in the AI department at University of Alberta as well. I guess so. I figured you guys. How big is that department, by the way?
Let's see. We're about 30 professors, probably like 300 undergrads, and about 150, 200 grad students.
Okay, so fairly big, basically. In my head, I was picturing it as being a little bit smaller, so I figured you guys almost had to know each other. But I guess probably kind of a coincidence that you guys have crossed paths, I guess.
No, well, because we both did AI, and we were both students together, probably 6 or 7 years. So yeah, I know Dave really well.
Oh, cool. Small world. All right, I'll call this. I'm definitely getting run over a decent amount this match. Been there haven't been too many hands that I regret or anything, but it's kind of yesterday, last match when the blinds kind of got up to 100, 200, 300, 600, all the pots were going my way. Here it seems like some of this small to medium sized pots he's been having the upper hand. So here he bets pot on the flop, checks the turn. That's a little bit of a weird sort of line on his part. Maybe this isn't right, but it seems to me like he has a lot of sort of no equity, no equity hands on the flop that where he wants to polarize it. Some of those hands that are complete junk, but I would guess the majority of people with their strong hands will bet the turn the majority of the time. I'm going to bet fairly small here, where I still have so many hands that have missed, where I think that if he does have let's say something like 7-3 of hearts is something I think would pot the flop, check the turn a very large percent of the time. I think it's almost inevitable to call the river. Yeah, so king 3 off. Yeah, that's one that's always folding. Saudi24 asks, what programming language is the bot written in?
Yeah, good question. Martin, do you want to answer this one?
Sure. So me and my team decided to go with, and when we were writing DeepStack, there was no PyTorch yet available, so we opted for Lua.
Oh, and another question by CT7 again. He asks, I wonder if the developers play poker live or online. What's each of your poker background like?
I think for almost everyone on the team, we don't play at all. Like,
oh, that's interesting.
That's definitely true for me. I've probably played 100 hands in my life, and it's really just when I'm testing, because I don't know what I'm doing. We have 2 guys on the team right now that play at least a little bit. I think maybe better than recreationally, but not at anything like a professional caliber. We've had a couple of guys on the team in the past that did go on to play professionally.
Okay.
And we have another 3 guys, the guys that actually played for fun or semi-seriously. Mm-hmm. Most of them went on to work for PokerStars or Full Tilt.
Oh, that's kind of cool. What did they end up doing there? Was it anything related to botting detection or anything, or was it completely unrelated?
About half and half.
Okay.
2 of the guys went and worked on the actual server infrastructure for Full Tilt, so just actually running the games and running the tournaments.
Right.
And then some of the other guys wound up in bot detection, inclusion detection, that kind of thing.
Cool. We'll bet this.
Just one quick comment, because we were talking about the programming language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so someone in the chat mentioned that's in Lua and there's a GitHub for it. So yeah, after we wrote the paper about this, we haven't released the code for DeepStack itself, but we did release kind of an example of the algorithm on a very small toy poker game called Le Duc Hold'em. This game that's a 6-card deck where you get 1 card and there's 1 board card. So if anyone's a programmer and wants to see an example of the code on that tiny game, they can find that on DeepStack.ai.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's nice that you guys are. I like that you guys are releasing, information about it. Like the one thing I told you on the phone, but I guess viewers might find interesting is I felt like during the Libratus challenge, it felt like they're just especially early on when it was less clear that Libratus was going to win. It kind of felt like a lot of information was kind of like somewhat concealed, I guess, where it was the humans were kind of talking everything, and then a lot of the humans even started thinking that they might be reprogramming the bot based on their comments during the day. I like that this isn't such a tense environment, I suppose. What do I want to do here?
Yeah, for sure. Because we've already written the paper about it. Like, we're happy to talk about anything. Yeah, it was a bit different for them because, they were still trying to win the match as it was going on, and they had a couple of weaknesses that they knew about, so they were pretty careful about what they were saying.
Oh, did stuff like that come out after the fact? Like, did they like? I haven't read any of the papers written about it. Like, I basically as soon as the match was done, I stopped following that. Did they ever come out and say, "Oh, here are some of the things that our bot does wrong"? Or no?
Well, after the match was over, they have been talking more publicly about the technology that went into it. There was a conference back, I think it was in February. It was just after their match ended, and we were there and they were there, and like it was the biggest AI conference of the year, or one of the big ones. And so there they were talking pretty openly about what they'd done. And I don't think they had really big holes in theirs, but there were definitely weaker spots. Like on the pre-flop and flop, they were still using a strategy that they trained ahead of time. And so it was probably vulnerable to some of the betting size attacks that we talked about earlier on in the stream. That's one of the things that DeepStack is not vulnerable to, because on every round it's constantly like resolving little bits of the game.
Yeah.
And they were doing that on the turn and river, and doing it really well on the turn and river. But they definitely, like if there was a weak part of the game, it was on the pre-flop and flop. And I think they were being pretty careful not to talk much about it.
Yeah, I noticed that they started out with maybe 4 pre-flop bet sizings, and they quickly switched to like 1 pre-flop bet sizing on day 2 or day 3 or something like that. I found that was fairly interesting.
Yeah, if I'm remembering right, I think it might have been on day 6 that they switched, but they definitely did make a switch, and it's because they had looked at what had happened in the earlier days, and figured that the pros might have an edge going forward. And so they did make a change that night to really change the pre-flop strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Russ DT asks a question. He says, "What are you doing, Mike? Jamming 70 BB pre with 9/8 suited?" Yeah, so I didn't really talk about this hand because we were talking about something else as it was going on. There was a hand there where I opened the bot 3-bet. I think he made it like 6 big, or I guess he would have made it like 7.5 big blinds, and then I jammed like 65 blinds with 9/8 suited. That's sort of a situation of roughly emulating what a kind of like a slightly more refined version of the strategy you were saying Dutch was using. And basically my intent there is I know that the bot thus far has been 3-betting a pretty wide range of hands. A lot of King 10 off type hands, or hands that aren't I don't typically see people 3-betting that often. So I know its 3-bet percent is very high, and I also know against an all-in, it is it's going to need a relatively strong hand to be calling an all-in. So I figured something like 9/8 suited has okay equity when called, and I'll get assigned a relatively strong range because I'm just the bot knows what its range looks like. And knows that it's calling enough that maybe my 9/8 probably the bot knows that my 9/8 suited shove is like slightly losing to shove there, but I don't mind raising the variance against an opponent that is presumably a fair bit better than me. So that was kind of the mindset there, where I thought that I'd be able to make a break even or slightly losing play to raise the variance, basically. So that was and he ended up folding ace jack off, which is a pretty decent outcome for me for just trying to similar to what I was saying at the end of the first match, where the bot is playing for maximum BB per 100. Like I'm kind of playing for sort of maximum win percentage, which probably involves not playing like a small ball strategy against the bot. So I'll bet this just because this is one of the weakest hands I can have here. I plan to get. I expect I'll get called a lot, but you know the bot will always have some sort of folding range here. Reason Mate says, how long did it take to code, and how did you know the bot was good enough to release?
Yeah, for how long it took to code, I think it was about 9 months or so after Martin Mache got to joined us at the University of Alberta, before we were ready to actually play it against anything. So maybe 9 months, except that was also building on 3 years of experience that Martin Mache had doing their own thing, and building on 15 years of experience for the team at the University of Alberta. So yeah, there's a lot of code to inherit there. As far as when we knew it was good enough to release, what did we do? We played against all of our earlier bots. We played against some pros that we know here in Edmonton, just got a sense of how strong it was. And then I think after that we moved to playing our match against the 33 pros back in November. Did really well there, and that's when we decided it was ready, to play now, against you on Twitch and other people on Twitch.
Is there has there been any? Have you guys personally watched many hands where the bot has done something and you just really scratch your head having no idea? I know there were a few hands that people saw in the Libratus challenge where, especially when it had more funky bet sizings, where I would guess even the guys the poker forums trying to analyze it had no idea, and I would guess even the programmers had no idea. Have there been many situations where it just does something that you really are really surprised by, or are most of the hands, when I guess the maximum bet size is 2x pot, are most of them kind of more explainable, I guess?
No, there have been a handful of actions that looked questionable or even wrong. So part of that is when it's making when it's playing the game here, when you make an action, go through to the rest of the game to figure out what action it should do in response. Mm-hmm. And so that's why on the pre-flop it takes 5 or 6 seconds to act, right? Because it's trying to solve through until the end of the pre-flop to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And so the more time we give it to think, the more hands it gets to play against itself to figure out its strategy, and then the better it does in response.
Right.
So we've definitely spotted a couple of hands that when we look up its action probabilities later on, it'll be some weird action, you'll call an all-in with 1% probability or something, mm-hmm. where calling is pretty clearly the wrong move.
Yeah.
And in spots like that, we're pretty sure that if we just let it run longer, it would probably have figured out on its own, to turn that 1% down to 0%.
Right.
So there's a trade-off between how strong do we want the bot to be versus how annoying is it to play against, right? If it has to tank for 30 seconds every action, that's horrible, and that's not real poker.
Yeah. Is there if you were to guess, and I have no idea. So let's just say the example of when it was when it was winning 49 BB per 100, how much longer do you think the bot would have to take to win 50 BB per 100? Do you think that it would it be 10% longer? Would it be 100 times as long, or what is sort of the marginal gains you get from more time spent, more calculation time the bot uses at this point?
Oh, good question. I don't even have a good guess on that one. Martin, do you even have a guess on that?
Hi. So, yeah, we did some experiments on turn and river, and yeah, I think to get some reasonable improvement, we would have to increase the time by twice the amount that we have. So it's probably not worth it right now, because the player would annoyed. We don't want to have an AI that acts 20-40 seconds. That would be silly.
Right. Let me think about what I want to do here.
There's one question in the Twitch chat I'd like to answer, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Answer is, if you see, like, I haven't normally when I'm streaming poker, I'm probably I'm mostly I'm following the Twitch chat pretty closely. Here I'm pretty focused on trying to beat this thing, so I've probably missed a lot of good questions. You can go right ahead and answer anything that I happen to miss.
Sure. Yeah, the one that I just saw here is one from Reason M8, who asks, I guess you need supercomputers for this algorithm. Can you explain the algorithm a bit? This is one of the really exciting things about DeepStack. So for all of our older bots, it took a massive amount of computation. Like when we solved Heads Up Limit in 2015, I mentioned at the start of the call, that was 1,000 CPU years of time. So we used 200 machines with a ton of CPUs on each, and we ran it for about 3 months. But that's what we call 1,000 CPU year computation. It's like if you had one computer running for 1,000 years to figure out how to solve the game. And all of our earlier strategies were also running on supercomputers. Libratus ran on a supercomputer. Even though it was acting like 30 seconds per action on the turn, they used the Pittsburgh supercomputer to run it, which was like a multi-million-dollar machine. The really exciting thing about DeepStack is it runs on a single GPU running on a single computer. It's incredibly lightweight for the amount of computation it uses. There's a bit of computation it has to do like before the match starts, just to figure out like the value of hands on different boards, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that training bit is more expensive. I think that is more like 100 years of computation. Okay. Which again, like you spread it across a couple hundred machines, and now it's down to months. Yeah. But as it runs, like what you're playing against right now, can run on a single gaming laptop with a single like modern NVIDIA card.
Wow, that's pretty scary. Like it's impressive, but to pro poker players, it kind of it's scary for the future of poker if there can be things this powerful that you could have for online poker inside your laptop, and then potentially the way computers are going, have something like this in your cell phone for live poker within 3 years maybe, or something like that's quite impressive.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we're proudest of with this one, because it's the first kind of different step. Like I said, everything up until now has always been about using bigger and bigger computers, mm-hmm. and this is the first time we've gotten to go smaller. This question was, how does it learn? Or sorry, just like explaining what the algorithm is. So a lot of the modern poker bots, so this one and Libratus and the one for Heads Up Limit, all use the same algorithm at its core, which is called counterfactual regret minimization. The actual way that it runs is it just learns to play a game by repeatedly playing itself. So completely random strategy, like it's going to fold and call and raise 33% on each, like totally random. Mm-hmm. And it plays a hand against itself, sees the outcome, and then it looks back through the decisions it made, and it finds ways to change its strategy that would have won it more money if it had done them. Okay. So after it plays, it kind of backs up the values and figures out what to change to improve just a little bit, and only improving against itself, because it was just playing against itself. And so then it plays again with this new strategy and does a little bit better, and so on. and when you do this for literally billions or trillions of games, we can prove mathematically that in the limit, if you do this long enough, the average strategy that uses over all of those training games, that bit converges to a Nash equilibrium. So it converges to GTO. So we can prove that it works if you run it long enough. And then the question is, how long do you have to run it? Mm-hmm. For all of the earlier ones, like for the heads-up limit strategy, it had to run for, I don't even know the name for it because it's a tremendous number of games. Like it ran something like 1 million hands a second for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
So enormous. Lots of our earlier bots before that had to run on the order of billions of games against itself.
Jesus.
DeepStack, when it plays here, like every time you click and it's its turn, I think it's playing something like 1,000 hands against itself. Kind of 1,000 hands considering its entire range versus the range that it thinks you have in the other seat.
Okay.
So it's kind of like 1,000 iterations, where each iteration is looking at something like 1,000,000 hands.
Yeah.
Like 1,000 it can hold and 1,000 you can hold.
Yeah.
And it gets that done in about 5 or 6 seconds.
Okay. That's fast. That's really fast. Not sure what I should be doing here. I guess I'll check this one back. Yeah, maybe I should. Yeah, I think I'll bet this is backdoors. So the limp fold king 2 off. Alright, so I guess it probably plays a little tighter against limps as stacks get shallower. I guess makes sense. So Russian Millifera says, what's the commercial purpose of these poker bots?
Yep, commercial purpose, not at all. For us, like we're just in it, we're all scientists, we're doing this for the research. And really what we want to do is we're using poker as a game to learn more about AI, to figure out how to solve real world problems. This is kind of a long tradition for AI. Like all the work that was done on checkers and chess and Go over the last like 40 years, really. We learned a lot from all of that. We learned a lot about AI and about even seemingly unrelated things, like just the power of computation to kind of make up for intelligence was a really important thing for us to learn. That you didn't so much need fancy algorithms sometimes as just having like a lot of computation to throw at a problem. So there's really no commercial purpose at all.
I think that's. I think that probably makes everyone fairly excited to hear that. Yeah, there's. Do you guys think that? Do you guys think that there are guys, like you, who have, your computer background? Like, basically, if someone had if someone was doing everything with their own funding, with malicious intent rather than academic intent, just running, just someone who's, as good of coders as you guys, financing things themselves rather than having, financing from the university. Do you think it's a realistic project that, someone could take on to try to build a bot like this, and then run it for commercial purposes, like to play poker or just sell it or whatnot? Do you think that's something that people could feasibly do, or is it too expensive of a process, or what do you think?
No, that absolutely not only is possible, like that has been happening for years.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like of course, bots are on online sites, and there's really no question like that the heads-up games people are doing this.
Yeah.
And for the heads-up games, I think they're probably because they can read papers and they can find out what's worked well for other people, and come up with really good strategies for playing heads-up. As for multi-way, like I said earlier on in the call, multi-way is tough, like both because the problem is harder, but because it's also theoretically tougher. My guess is that the multi-way stuff is more based around rules-based bots. So for someone just tries to encode what they know about poker, like as a set of rules that the bot can use. Those bots probably suck strategically, right? But because once you have it in a bot, it can go and play tons of tables at once and plays nonstop. It'll kind of clear, like do really well against the weaker players.
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge for the poker site.
Right.
It's really is, I've heard, for example, that with poker stars, at least for the super high stakes players, if they suspect someone's using a bot, then they'll actually just go and ask them to like videotape themselves playing, so they can get some evidence that they're not using a program, they're not using a separate machine while they play. That's something that doesn't really scale to all stake levels, but for sure the poker sites are taking it seriously for trying to figure out how to respond.
Right. That's good then. Not sure what I'm supposed to do with king 5 off here. I think I'll check it. This is pretty close between one of the weakest hands I'd shove and one of the best hands I'd check. A little uncertain there. I'll call this flop. Not too excited about it, but in this pot. Go all in here. Here. I feel like I have a lot better cards than the bot at the moment. Always nice when the blinds get high. Oh, by the way, will the bot ever like slow roll? Like in a situation like this where I'm all in, will it ever be thinking about its own range? Like is it possible that the bot will just take 4 seconds and then call with aces? Or is it because it's thinking about what it would do with other hands? Or will it not do that to me?
I think in a spot like that, it'll act instantly.
Okay.
Because like after you're all in and it just has to decide whether or not to call, the size of the game is so tiny. Like it only has 2 decisions. That's it.
Right.
So it's going to solve those really quickly. It'll never slow roll on purpose.
Okay.
Like there are spots that'll do something that might look like slow rolling, and the reason why is like let's say you're at the start of the flop, and like the flop is ace something, and if the bot has ace. Like, this is a spot that obviously is going to be really easy for any human.
Yeah.
But every time the bot has to act, it's not just playing that one hand. It has to consider every possible hand in its range and what it would do with every possible hand.
Right.
And that's just so it can get the mixing right. So even in spots like that, it might look like a really obvious decision given the hand it's holding, but it's always going to take the same amount of time because it has to consider what's in its entire range.
Right.
So it'll take just as long as if it had 2-7 off in that decision.
That makes a lot of sense when there's still other actions left to be had. All right, so the DeepStack won the second game. I shoved with 8-7 suited. I called with king 6 off. Fairly standard. I guess I'll start match number 3.
Cool. All right.
All right, 1-1. I hate Cartman Bra says, does the bot adjust based on showdowns? No, it doesn't. It doesn't adjust to my play. So here he calls 3 on the turn, not too exciting. I kind of like that. I feel like there's enough. Some of the gut shots and stuff that presumably folding a lot of ace highs and stuff. I think I'll bet this again. Fold this. One second. I'm just going to fill up my water glass. Sorry about that.
So Martin had a question that he wanted to ask you. And he was wondering if this is feeling like, is it clear that you're playing against a bot here? Or does it feel like this could be a human?
It feels like it could be a human for sure. I'm not even well versed in playing heads up, so I'm not the I'm not the best person to ask this. There haven't really been that many showdowns. I don't know if there's been any showdowns that seem particularly bot-like yet. It seems to play, thus far there haven't been very many. Again, I've probably only played 120, 130 hands or something, but there haven't been too many things that really stick out. The one thing I would say is I guess the range it 3-bets with seems odd enough that would be the only thing that might seem a bit bot-like. I think a lot of people just sort of have certain hands that they're 3-betting the majority, certain ones that they're checking the majority, and I think that or that they're calling with the majority. I think that the fact that the bot has such a mixed strategy would be the first thing that would make me think it seems a little bit bot-like. But even then, I wouldn't be very confident. If I just played this guy heads up, I'd be like, oh, he seems like a good poker player who's just plays pretty ham in the big blind kind of thing. I might think it's someone who's good, but very much like a feel player and thinks my timing was weak or something like that. So he checks the turn there. Huh. He checks her every swing. Yeah, Saudi24 says he's surprised to see so many zero equity bluffs by the bot. So basically, I think what ends up happening is when you have so basically the bot needs to partition its hands into different ranges. Like certain hands it's going to go bet bet bet, certain hands it's going to go check bet bet, certain hands it's going to go bet check bet. Like there's partitions hands with varying frequencies. And I think basically what it does is obviously the bot has various any time you play poker, you're going to have no equity hands. And what the bot will do then is it realizes that the right hands to be no equity bluffing with are hands that are, you want to take lines where you bet a small number of times but a large percent of the pot. So it's one of those hands, the bot on average shouldn't be doing that many no equity bluffs where it goes half pot, half pot, half pot, but it will do a lot of no equity bluffs where it goes check, full pot, full pot. And that basically just comes down to you want to have some strong disguise hands that way. Basically when hot and cold equities lead to usually whoever has the best hand is almost always winning the pot, that is presumably when the bot will have high frequencies towards no equity bluffs. Whereas it's less likely to just go half pot, half pot, half pot. Then it's much more likely to have missed backdoors or a missed gut shot or something like that. I think that's I can't say for certain, but I think that's proper poker theory, and I imagine as we see more from the bot, those will be the types of hands that you'll be seeing more often. I think I'm just relatively high in my range here with the 6 here. I'm just going to call. LT Burren says, why not play in Monte Carlo Timex? So I just bought a house maybe 2 weeks ago, actually in Canmore. I was in Edmonton actually a week ago. If I knew about this, we could have even done it live or something. But basically, I recently bought a house and just had a lot going on with that, and then ended up just deciding not to play Monaco this year. I will 3-bet this. Dick Slatty Club asks, how much does the bot currently cost to operate?
Yeah, so at the spot now, like now that we actually have it written and have all the stuff we need pre-computed, like I mentioned earlier, it's a single, so like $700 plus electricity. Yeah, so super cheap now. Getting to the spot where it could play even its first hand took about 100 CPU years of training. So that's more of the expensive bit, is the upfront cost of training. As for how much, I don't even have a good way to guess. 100 years of computation, if you had to do that on Amazon, I think you're definitely looking at like the high tens of thousands, at least, maybe more.
So that's a fair bit, but that's not that much as far as what's been accomplished by it. Okay. Trying to decide what to do here. So we're like, normally I wouldn't be felting ace queen for 120 blinds. I think that basically I saw enough weird 3-bets that the plan was to do more 4-betting. 4-bet folding this feels a bit weird, but I don't hate it. I think I'm just going to 4-bet decide and then kind of go from there. I think I just will get enough value when he's had so many just arbitrary 3-bets there. So he calls. Holy shit. Alright, I think with the ace of hearts in my hand, this becomes an easier fold, where I think the hands he's most likely to, like, hands with hearts in are hands he's quite likely to play this way. I imagine ace queen without a heart is better to call with. Yeah, that's interesting here. Yeah, I'm just gonna fold here. Whew. All right. Yeah, I think that's a hand that makes a ton of sense by all the decisions he made. Sucks to fold the best hand, but that's a hand that I think he would play that way the vast majority of the time. Pretty happy with my 4-bet pre. John Duthie asks, "Are you going to Montreal, Mike?" I haven't booked my flights yet or anything, but I'm probably like 90% to go. Yeah, I'm planning on it. Mad Marty 615 asks, "Mike, where is your beautiful girlfriend?" My mom keeps asking me the same thing. I'm still single. No beautiful girlfriend in the picture. All right, yeah, it'll be good to see you, John. We should definitely, when I'm in Montreal, we should definitely talk about some things we can do with poker shares and party poker. John Duthie asks what I would do with Queen on that 8-7-6 flop. I mean, I think if I get to that flop with a pair, I'm just going to end up calling, basically. I mean, I don't really get to that flop with any pairs many pairs that aren't good hands. Like if I 4-bet ace-6 off or something, I might have ended up folding, but I think I'm way more likely to 4-bet something that leads to having like a pair and a gutter or something, and I think I'm just going to call each of those, and then with all my overpairs, I'd end up calling as well. And I think that, you know, when the bot's anticipating how I'm acting in that spot, I think he just knows that my range is so much. You know, I probably have ace high with no draw there, you know, 30% of the time or some pretty large amount, and I think he's specifically targeting that portion of my range. I don't think he's at all trying to make me make big folds or anything. I think it's more just making sure that, you know, ace king can't recognize its equity. I think that's the goal with its range for betting the flop, I think. So I'll check all of this. And then yeah, I mean after calling a pot size bet, blocking the hearts, I'll fold this. Huh. That's kind of cool. That's interesting. I would have really thought that its combos would have been to not bluff hands with the 7 of hearts in. That's interesting. I guess it's likely that I just underestimate just how many value combos he'll take that line with. I would have assumed he would just bet all his flush draws except ones with the queen and 7 of hearts. Maybe possibly even check some king of hearts hands. That's interesting. That could also be counterbalance. It's likely the computer checks early streets with flush draws more often than I would or a lot of human opponents would. So that may lead to him, you know, only having less hands that fit in that category after that sizing. That could be it. I'd be interested in seeing. Do you have the ability to look at a specific situation and see what the computer's ranges look like? Like, are you able to like put in a certain board and see if it has this, it does this 75%, it does this 20%? Like, are you able to see that for individual scenarios?
Yeah, that is a thing we can do.
Would I be able to, like, I mean, I'm not saying now, but at some point, would I be able to see what was its sort of play, like what is its strategy for different bet sizes on that board with the Queen 8 of hearts against 9-7 of hearts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was like hand 20, I think. I'll write it down. We'll get back to you by email with that.
Awesome, thanks. So here, just probably gonna end up just barreling this off. 56. called by some worse hands. I don't think he'll check raise bluff too often. So how exploitable do I want to be? I'll just keep them in. So this river here is kind of shitty. Basically, 9x gets there, spades get there. I don't think I was betting big enough that I should expect many 9x to fold. I guess I'd probably just check call. Okay, so Cowbait asks, "What's up, Mike? Do you get anything if you beat this AI?" Yeah. So I get. They're giving me $500 for each game I win against the AI. So $500 so far, and 3 more chances of making more money. This is probably pretty close. It seems like the bot doesn't have a super high continue percent against 3-bets. So it could be 8 plays better as a call against him. Not sure. Yeah, I like that. Fold d6 off. Thanks, Cowbait. Appreciate it. I guess I have a lot of worse hands. I'll just check this. Lucas Vienna says, "Do you play much heads up?" These days, not as much. I played a decent amount a couple of years ago, and I've gone through phases of playing some more heads up sit and goes and stuff like that. But I'm by no means a heads up specialist or anything. Jamie C. Feel says, "How many matches are you playing today?" So are we playing 5 matches, or is it a best of 5? Like, if one of us goes 3-1, is it done? Or is it
best of 5, and yeah, done when someone hits 3.
Okay. So there's been very little flop check raising going on. I'm gonna fold this one, but interested to see what he has. Well, that's a hand I would have put at a fairly, would have estimated as a fairly low frequency for him. I guess just knows it's a vulnerable hand and knows that like everything that I'm bluffing with has equity against it. Brucha Cabra says, "Can I bet on DeepStack on poker shares?" For this one, we didn't allow it just because it looks like kind of a conflict of interest if I end up playing against the bot and then losing and not playing very well and people all bet on me to win or something. But it seems like DeepStack's going to be doing a lot more matches. And yeah, like Michael, if you want to like keep in contact with me, we can put up betting odds to allow viewers to bet on the outcome of these matches, and then if that's something that your team is interested in.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to the university, but we can talk about it after.
Okay, cool. I'll fold this. He doesn't give him many walks. I've heard this. Actually, have any of the viewers noticed what hands he's walked with? So far, I've seen a 3-2 off and an 8-2 off walk. Have there been any others that I'm forgetting? I know that he's definitely playing quite. I think he's definitely playing the button looser than I do. I know that, but I'm not sure just how much looser. If anyone's seen him has anyone seen him give a walk with the hand without a 2 in it or not? I'm assuming he doesn't, but. Maybe 8-3 off specifically. Okay, so Swamp says he walked with 9-3 off. Oh, speak of the devil. All right, walks a 4-3 off. So I saw him limp 5-3 off, so he's probably playing about like low 90s% or something like that. I'm probably playing like maybe mid 80s or something. Lucas Vienna says, "Are the programmers able to see chat and answer questions?" Yep, they're able to. Oh, that's a little weird. I'm gonna call this one. Might end up even calling river too. I'm not sure if I should. I'll call and then decide what I want to do. So I guess I need to think about when he's raising the turn, how much of what he's doing is representing, two pair and straights versus sets and stuff. So I think if he's raising the turn, he probably shouldn't have that much Jack X. I think he should. I imagine he'll have more 10x and 6x, then he would have Jack X. I think if he had Jack 10, he'd be playing it this way quite a large percent. Obviously, betting the flop sometimes. I think he has, I think if he has me beat, it's usually Jack X, and then I think he has, I think he'll have plenty of two paired set type combos. This is definitely kind of a nasty spot for me. I think with a lower stack to pot ratio, betting could be kind of reasonable here. I think I'll check and then decide. It sucks, letting him check back pocket nines and things like that. 8-5 off is, so I guess he's not really bluffing that spot too often then. Maybe he's not bluffing his diamond combos, thinking they block queen 5 of diamonds and things like that. Ace 5 of diamonds, so he may have bluffed that if he had 8-5 no diamond. I'm not exactly sure. Normac11 says he's just getting into MTTs. Should he shove Nash near the bubble? No, you should play way tighter near the bubble. Just because Nash is just about earning chips. It's not about earning money. So you should play much looser than Nash if you're one of the biggest stacks, and particularly the biggest stack of your table, and then much tighter than Nash if you're one of the shorter stacks. I'm gonna try to get some extra folds out of him. I'm gonna be kind of exploitive with my pre-flop sizings. This is a hand that I just don't mind trying to win the pot at decent pre-flop and not wanting to make too many no equity bluffs post-flop, but also knowing when he does call, I'll have some boards where I can bluff at it. So I mean, this board is hits both of our ranges reasonably well. I'm just going to check and then likely bet river. And then, yeah, I mean, basically all I'm trying to do here is the bot in this spot knows what his range looks like, and is therefore going to always have some folds. To where basically I just with the worst hands I should just be trying to bluff because he's just going to fold this spot 30% of the time or whatever it happens to be. I don't really know what his range looks like, but he knows what his range looks like, and probably my weakest hands are going to profit by betting there. That's one thing that I find kind of fun about playing against a bot, where it's just sort of, when you play against specific humans, especially in live poker, so many bluffs that you make literally work 0% of the time, and it's easy to beat yourself up over bad bluffs. But it's kind of fun against a bot where it's really tough for a bluff to be losing that much money. It's tough to really beat yourself up because they when they're playing a strategy that's is of a GTO fashion and not an exploitive one, they just have to have folds in every single spot. Actually, haven't seen many flop leads yet. That's kind of interesting. Let me think about why he's leading this texture. I think that basically, even though my hand isn't great, I think with backdoor flush draws and backdoor straight draws, this isn't a particularly bad hand to continue with. I think I have a lot of worse hands out there. I think I'm going to call this one. I'll fold now. More e6 than me, but that's similar. Let's hold this. Holy shit! Huh. Would you also be able to show me the frequencies for this hand? That is a thin value bet. That's a really thin value bet.
Yeah, and 52 will do.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, this is. It's almost certainly good. But I just think spots like this are interesting, where, where basically, I don't think it's unreasonable. I wouldn't, consider value betting this hand in his shoes. But it's likely good, and I think that's that's just kind of it's interesting, and also interesting that he chose the full pot sizing there with this combo. That's pretty cool. Jamie C. Feel asked if it was value betting or bluffing with 4-4. It was definitely value betting there. Holy pot size raise here. That is not a board where I expected someone to raise pot. Spaced Out says, Mike, do you think you can improve more by playing this AI than real players? I think I'll say something like that fours bet. It's kind of, it's sort of interesting, as bots get better and better, they'll just do things that are just, definitively right. And it's one of those things where, say someone bet fours against me and I, folded to 3 or called to 3 or whatever it happened to be, I'd be like, wow, that was really thin. Like, if a human did it, I'd be thinking, oh, that might be, this guy might be getting a little carried away. But I think when bots do things, if you basically just determine that, hey, if you're unclear, the bot's probably doing it better than you, like, basically any hand that happens, if you strongly disagree with what the bot's doing, you can kind of use that as a tool and then, plug it into, various, simulators and try to look at what your ranges each look like and try to figure out if the bot is doing something right or something wrong. I think that I think there's a lot of I think there's basically a lot of room to improve against the bot. I imagine that probably goes sort of only so far. Like, if you were to play you know, if you could play 5 hours against one, I'd say the bot, you'll probably learn a lot more. If you're to play like 1,000 hours, the things you learn against humans might be more applicable against humans. So, you know, after enough time, you likely want to switch to playing human opponents, because, you know, a lot of the things the bot does that are better than humans, your brain won't be able to duplicate, I guess. This is a little close here. I think I'll fold, but I don't really feel very good about it. I'll just jam this. Not really fun seeing a flop. Oh, he's thinking. He's thinking. Oh, that's wanted to put me on the. I mean, I guess if I turn my face up, that's probably a call. He's probably thinking I had the twos. All right, I'm gonna go all in here. All right. Better lucky than good. And Kurt12 says it's an advantage for me that I get to see his cards every time. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of sort of, you know, adjustments that, you know, that I've been making where I think that, you know, I'm losing less than I would be without getting to see its cards. All right, so he pots the river. I don't really. Actually, I have no idea how likely the bot is to pay off value raises. Maybe I can raise this because I block 10-7 or something like that. I have no idea. I'm just going to raise. I don't know if that's good or not. So he potted the jack there. I guess he thought I had plenty of 9x there. I'm gonna go all in with the 9-6 suited. Worked well last time. I'll jam this as well. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick to just jamming a lot of medium strength suited hands. This one might be a little on the light side, but I don't really mind it. Crack Rocket says, is PokerShares hiring for any roles? At the moment, we aren't. That may change in the, you know, not too distant future, but for the time being, we aren't hiring at PokerShares. Normac11 asks, roughly how wide are you defending the big blind? You know, against a min raise, probably, I don't know, 75-80% or so, and then against a 3x, probably 55-60%, something along those lines. Might have gotten a call there, I'm not sure. Go all in again. trying to think of how I would want to size this here. With 2x plot, I can go bet, or I can go bet. I think I'll go bet. Alright, he won the all-in. He's back into it. Oil Trader asks, does the AI do overbets? It only overbets the river. It'll do 2x overbets on the river. I think we've seen maybe only 1 or 2 of them, not a ton. This with the backdoor flush draw is probably pretty close. I think I'll end up folding it. I'll just shove this ace-3 off. This might be a few too many chips. Maybe that's probably not ideal. I do like the idea of just like upping the variance when I can, but that might be too unnecessary. I'm a little surprised he didn't value bet there. I feel like that, to me, seems like a more normal value bet than the forest one. Maybe he anticipates I'd play a strat. Maybe the GTO strategy is I should be raising a lot more King X pre or something like that. I might be getting there with too much King X or something. I'm not sure. Or also it may just involve me checkers and all that. 6s. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good board. I think I still have so many middling hands for like ace high and stuff like that. I think that he'll want to. I think he'll make some no equity bluffs in this spot, and then also try to value bet. I think it makes sense for him to value bet pretty thin as well. Don't mind that flop. Huh, that's not a great run up for me. Probably just check call this. Holy shit! Wow, that could have gotten expensive. That's kind of nice. Sick. Maybe I want to raise and deuce the king 8 suited. Yeah, I kind of like raise and deucing this. And this is sort of when I say induced, it's not like I'm expecting him to really cram it in. It's more just I don't mind upping the variance when I just think it's going to play better than me. It's not like I actually think I'm beating its range or anything like that. Sweet. Yeah, if I were to have just not said anything there, said raise and deuce, I'd probably look like more of a genius here. But that's a hand he may have folded to the shove. But I'm able to just get both all in more and see more flops with a hand with an equity advantage. I don't know that that's the right play if I think I'm as good as my opponent, but I think when I'm a little worse, I don't mind that. All right, so we're 2-1 for humanity. All right, Michael, are you still there?
Yeah, sure am.
Okay, cool. Just about to start round 4.
Perfect. Yeah, now it's sudden death, eh?
Oh yeah, it's exciting. Oh shit! All right, we're going to war against the bot on hand 1. I don't know if this hand is good enough to be felting. I feel like I think it probably is. I mean, I'm happy to 4-bet it regardless, but we'll need to reevaluate if he chooses to 5-bet. So one of the running jokes in this chat is let me find this. Oh yeah. So basically, Michael, you might find this kind of funny. Have you ever seen? You haven't ever seen the poker hand that I played on my 18th birthday with pocket jacks, have you?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so if you look at the chat, Nightbox just sent a link to it. This is probably one of the funniest, televised poker hands that's happened in the last decade or so. Where basically I was just an unknown 18-year-old kid at the time. Like people online knew who I was, but no one in the live poker arena did. And then I was playing against a guy who's like, he won the world championships about 11 years ago, and he was just, kind of an asshole basically. And he's just like trash talking me after getting lucky against me. And basically, he kind of berates me for calling with pocket jacks. So the running joke in my stream is whenever you have pocket jacks, they always lose. So that's why you can if you see any time I get dealt jacks or my opponent gets jacks, people are spamming this emote of like 2 jacks taking a shower. That's sort of that's the running joke there. If I don't know what your interest level is in poker, but if it's if it's very much, it's a kind of a funny video.
Oh, awesome.
I'm not sure what to do with the 9-2 suited here. I think I'll fold it. This is pretty close. Maybe that's too tight. Oh, here's a question. I know you mentioned earlier sometimes it has a rounding mistake and bets one chip too little. Have you guys noticed any tendencies that happen when it makes those? Like, are there certain hands that it's more likely to have a rounding mistake with, or is it more just certain situations where it'll make the rounding mistake with its whole range?
It shouldn't have anything to do with the board or the betting sequence that got it there. I think we tracked it down, and it's just a excuse me, a mistake in the math. So it'll probably do it like reliably every time the pot is a certain size.
Okay.
But I think that's it. Like, it's not anything particular to the strategy.
Okay, gotcha. I have no idea how big I'm supposed to bet here. I'm going to assume the answer is pretty fucking big. Basically, there's, I don't know for sure, but I guess that I don't want to bet a bet size such that he can just fold queen 9. But I think I probably want to bet as big as I can, such that he's still calling queen 9. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, this is the type of hand where, if I just see a human opponent make a big river raise here, I'm just like, oh, the guy's got ace queen. But the bot obviously doesn't think that way. The bot's just thinking about, how to be balanced in this way. Honestly, no, I think what he can have, I don't really know. I think that, I don't think I can actually raise the spot too big. I'm just going to raise, like 3/4 pot or something like that. I don't think I can, I think that the bot's probably aware enough of this spot of what my range can look like. I don't think I can go to him. I'm not sure though. Alright, so straight against straight. I wonder how much he would have called with 9-8 there. No idea. I'll fold this. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be folding this or not, but kind of one of the stronger hands I'll fold. So Jamie, there's this discussion going on about that ace queen against 9-8 hand, about how the bot will play various river situations, and there's one thing I think some people are sort of misunderstanding about how the bot will play rivers. Basically, what Jamie C. Feel said in chat is that if you bet really big on the river, if you have the nuts in your range, the bot will, virtually fold. That's not really what how a bot is going to look at your river play. What the bot is going to when the bot's making a river decision, it's not thinking nearly as much about your range as it is about its own range. And basically, what that means there is that the more important thing for what bet sizes it can attack or it can play back against isn't how often you can have the nuts, it's how often it can have the nuts. So it's like, let's say when it bets the river there, it has ace queen, 9% of the time or something like that. it, like, once you bet sufficiently big, it just knows it's calling at least 9%. Like, if you bet infinite times the pot, it's still calling at 9% of the time. Like, I think that for particularly large bet sizes, the more important thing is the bot's ability to have the nuts in those situations. And, you know, certain bet sizes just, you know, then once it knows that you can't really profitably be making that bet without, you know, nutted hands yourself, and then it kind of can backwards deduce that that you have to have a strong range. So it basically kind of it will look at both of your ranges rather than just looking at your range. I'm gonna call this check raise here. I don't love it, and perhaps I should call some maybe slightly worse absolute value strength hands that have more whatchamacallit, more equity, I guess, like maybe queen jack without a heart. So now here, basically, I think he can still keep barreling his hearts hands. I think if I would fold all my similar strength hands that have a heart, and then call the ones that don't have a heart, because I think that just leaves me more. I'm just doing better. So now here, basically, he has 2x a shitload at the time. Basically, I mean, I think he has king x. It's possible he just, you know, checks this river almost all the time. I think that. I mean, if I had any hearts hands, I would be bluffing those here. This ace-9 is one of the weakest hands I get here with. I think, I don't know. Let me think. So the bot has been attacking vulnerable hands with check raises, like, you know, that king 4 and ace 4 too. I think he's likely choosing a bet size with I think he's playing 2x this way quite a large amount of the time, especially on the king turn where his hand's super vulnerable. It's possible I call the turn too much here, in which case he may think my range is stronger than it is. I think I'm just going to bet half pot here and expect a 2 to fold enough that it's profitable. Oh, that's an interesting. I think it's fine bluff by him. So I guess given that he's barreling queen 9 on the turn, I think he likely queen 9 with a heart in particular. Likely the bot anticipates that I'll be folding plenty of ace high on the turn, so I think that would have been a pretty effective bluff against his 2x. I think that basically, having seen that result, I'm very happy with my river bet. Despite the fact that it's not the hand I was targeting. I will check this. Hey. Check that. This hand's pretty bad here. I think I'd go small bet now, big bet river, or something like that. Swamp3445 asks, "Are you going to keep streaming after the match, Mike?" No. Today I'm just streaming. Today I'm just streaming this. Not going to do any streaming after. So here he bets out pot here. This is an interesting spot where I don't mind. I don't mind raising. I don't mind. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to raise. I think he probably bluffs a lot of sort of 9x king queen type hands, or not king queen. You know, a lot of 9x hands basically. I don't block a 9. I have some equity, but I'm probably one of the strongest hands I don't really want to call with. So I think I'll just raise here. I should probably raise even bigger. What does a 3/4 pot raise put me up to? All right, I'm out of there. Ooh, damn! All right, I got fucking owned. All right, that's a good hand for him to choose to do that with. Okay, this I need to stay off this bot's corners. He's got them locked down. That was sick. So he has to have way more 5x, way more 3x, way more everything, basically. Oh, man. I just don't really block anything. This is just, you know, good. This is just smart by him, basically. Betting. This seems like a spot where betting large is good. Or in particular, when he has a lot more just 5x and 3x than I do pre. You know, he's just going to be bluffing this spot like 40% of the time, so I won't be too surprised when I get owned here. Normac11 says, if he calls turn in the 6-5 offhand, what rivers are you targeting to bluff? Pretty much just all of them, to be honest. Like he can still call the turn. He could call the turn with King Jack. He could call the turn with clubs. You know, I'm going to bluff pretty much every river that's not a 6 or a 5. Yeah, probably pretty much everything that's not a 6 or a 5. Yeah, I'm going for that spot a fair bit. So Devin Shima says, knowing the bot's strategy is a little more predictable than playing a human, why don't you bet with absolute error as often as possible and try to get him off the majority of his range? So that's not how a bot plays. Basically, you know, the bot knows what its range looks like, and no matter what you bet, it knows that it can defend its range with a large enough percent that your bluffs with error aren't just all profitable. So basically, you know, your bluffs need to, generally have combos that lead to them folding more than their share. So, you know, basically, in essence, it knows, you know, if you bet 1% of the pot or if you bet 1,000% of the pot, if it's built properly, it should just have a strategy that works well against all reasonable bet sizes to prevent what you're saying working, basically. I think he can be value betting this spot pretty thin. Yeah, I'm gonna raise this river here, and I think this is the type of thing that I think is decent against a bot, where it may overestimate how often I have traps on the turn, because like bots are just like, you know, way smarter than I am, where they'll just have some random, you know, 8-6 traps, or you know things like that, Jack 8s and things like that. Where, you know, for me, if I have Jack 8 or 8-6, I'm probably betting flop return almost 100%. But the bot, and the bot wouldn't be doing the same. It most likely it is, you know, just way more balanced than I am. So when I raise the river, it can't just, like, you know, rip it with 8-7, which was trying to make a thin value bet with, like, 100% of the time. It ends up, you know, having kind of fearing my range a little bit more than it should. King 5, that's fairly thin now. With 2 flush draws out there, I think I'll just check this one. I have so many random hands to semi-bluff with. Huh. That's kind of interesting. That's just something I would never consider doing, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of like protect your equity, free some hands up, potentially get some value. That's cool.
Oh, okay.
Pardon me? Oh, that's probably talking to someone else. Pretty good flop for me. It really seems like this match, the bot's just not really making any hands. Like, that's, you know, I feel like there was one where I think first match I card wrecked pretty hard. Second match felt like it card wrecked decently hard. I can't really remember the third as clearly. This one, it feels like I'm having normal-ish cards, and it's just having really shit cards. Tan976 asks, does the bot factor in timing tells? No, it doesn't, which is definitely a nice relief. Holy shit. Alright, I got fucking owned there. That's, yeah, that's no fun. So he blocks the jack of clubs. He blocks, I guess, stuff like, queen jack. Blocks, I guess jack 8, king jack. Yeah, I guess it's likely one of those things where he knows I'm never bluffing with a pair, and I guess bluffing the king jack and jack 8 combos is probably more important. So I guess, intuitively I would have thought that's like not a great combo because I could be bluffing with the jack of clubs. The fact that he blocks all my flush combos and blocks king jack and jack 8 probably means that is, like, that's the type of combo I never consider calling. But that probably means that I'm not understanding how much of a chunk, like, jack 8 with the jack of clubs, king jack with the jack of clubs could be, how much of a percent of my range that could be. Check raise a lot of flush draws. This one never really picks up that much additional equity on the turns. Huh. I wonder how big I want to bet here. Let's bet 2,400. Man, this bot has my number. Alright, we're gonna get all in here. This will be one of the first hands I've gone all in with where I'm actually, you know, fine to get called. Usually just for whatever reason. Oh yeah, we're winning the all-ins. That's an important pot to win. Pretty happy with that. Co-Patrol asks, how's it going? Pretty good. I've been running pretty hot so far, so I'm up 2-1, and then after winning that flip, had the chip lead in this last one. Here. So I don't know how often the bot will have... So I think the bot should be playing its flush draws pretty aggressively on the flop. And then I imagine... So it has 13 plus 5, it has 18 blinds. I imagine it's got to be jamming the... I think it's got to be jamming... a lot of its ace-x pre, and then some of its ace-x, I guess it's folding. Let me think. It'll have lots of hands with a decent amount of equity, and some of the hands with equity may end up calling. Like, it may just determine that 9-8 with a club is doing well enough to call here. I think this can be a terrible play if I'm underestimating how much ace-x he has, and I haven't really seen that many hands, but I think that his good ace-x, he's like virtually always 3-betting. His weaker ace-x may be folding flop. I think I'm just going to rip this spot, and I think that he can know that I could, do the same with, some, junky hands. And... All right, sweet. Yeah, so that's the type of hand that I think he kind of has to call off with there. Queen 7 with the club, where he has, he could potentially have me crushed if I had, say, like, 8-5 with the 5 of clubs, or something like that. It's tough for him to be really far behind. It's pretty fortunate to be winning the all-ins. Like, it's that I think if hands were reversed, this I wouldn't have gotten the same result. I think I just kind of had better hands than the bot throughout the match. Michael, is there anything else you want to talk about regarding this match, or there's presumably there's some viewer questions and stuff like that?
Yeah, we can do viewer questions. Congrats on winning the match, your second win.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it felt pretty good. I mean, it's we played 200 hands of poker, 250 hands of poker, so it's not it's not that I've played enough poker. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine about this, where it's a weird thing where I'm so used to trying to hope that I wish poker had less variance kind of thing, but it's weird knowing you're probably the underdog, just kind of hoping to succeed due to variance. Kind of, it was an interesting kind of role reversal, I guess, and obviously feels good to beat a bot of this caliber.
Yeah, no, well, it was great playing yesterday. Like, this was, super fun from our end too, and never feels bad to lose against someone that's as good at the game as you are.
Yeah, it's been it's been a fun it's been a fun process. I had a lot of fun this afternoon, and I was like, I mean, I ran super hot kind of thing. Like, it's I've played enough to know when just like things work my way, won a whole bunch of all-ins and such. But yeah, this was fun, and thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, do you want to hang around for a bit and answer questions, or do you have to get going? Or?
Yeah, no, I'm in no rush. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, just type them in the chat, and then you know, either of us could answer away. So yeah, if you want to, so Vinadel88 asks, this has probably been asked a lot, but we haven't answered this one in a couple hours. But has this bot faced off against Libratus or any of the CMU's bots?
Yeah, it has not played against Libratus. So our bots and CMU's bots in previous years have both competed in the annual computer poker competition. So we have lots of history of competing against each other there. For this year's competition, neither Libratus or ours could enter. The reason being is Libratus was running on a supercomputer and used way more computation and way more time than are allowed under the rules for the computer poker competition. And ours didn't either, just because ours runs on a GPU. So it acts fast enough, and it doesn't use much computation, but it does need that specialized hardware for the GPU. So we haven't competed in that computer poker competition. We also haven't competed head-to-head. We've talked about it a little bit, but nothing in the works just yet.
Jamie C. Field asks, who is the other person to beat DeepStack AI? And I guess while you're at it, who are some of the other people that have played the DeepStack AI? Because I guess I don't know if we've answered that yet.
Yeah, so this was our fifth match. So we played, let's see, the first one was against the Thinking Poker podcast. So Andrew Brokos and Nate Mavis. We won that one 3-2. Second match was the 2+2 poker cast. So Terrence Chen and Adam Schwartz. We won that one 4-1. Third one was against Dutch Boyd. I think that one was 4-1 as well, that we won. And then our first loss was last week. We played against Taylor von Kriegenberg, and he went 4-0. He was doing a best of 7 for his.
And then, there was, Normac11 asks, how deep is this bot program to play? If you were to just flip a few switches, could it play 1,000 BB deep or something like that? Or are there certain restrictions? Or is it, how does that work?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so all the training that it did was all at 200 deep. And then when it plays with shorter stacks, like in the freeze out, it's using the same data it trained on for 200, and it goes shallower. I think off the top of my head, it would work if we went deeper. Martin and Mate are still on the call. Do you guys agree with that, or do you think something would break?
So the way neural net was trained, it actually does understand anything from 0 to 200 big blinds. So it's not that it has seen only 200 big blind situations. It does understand and it was trained on all the other stake sizes as well. When it goes above 200, that would make it harder for it, but it would be still fairly easy to play it.
Okay, that makes sense. B Paris Poker asks, how deep did the match start? The match started, we each had 200 big blinds, and then the blinds went up every 10 hands. They usually about 1.5x or so, and then we played best of 5 matches. Is there are there any other questions? I guess right now, particularly about the bot, like there's some sort of like, troll questions about, is this Elky, or what's the size of the cup that I'm drinking out of? It's a pretty big cup. I guess I'll answer that one. But if there's if anyone else has any questions pertaining to the bot, we'll basically stay on as long as questions are still being asked. And then after that, we'll probably head out. Oh, and Kurt12 asked a good one. Can the bot improve? And then is it actively improving?
Yeah, so good question. So like we talked about during the stream, it's not improving hand to hand, like it was just playing the same strategy every time. So one way that we could improve it in the future is if it did try to do some opponent modeling, right? So if it learned something from previous hands to change its strategy, that would obviously help. There's also, kind of related to that, could it improve in just getting closer to GTO? And I think the answer there is yes as well. We talked about it a bit earlier on in the match. It tries to play a good approximation to GTO, and using all the analysis tools that we have, we think it is strong. but I'm sure there is still room to improve there as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I'm not an expert at No Limit, but throughout the whole match, it seemed like it was playing very tough. It seemed like it was making a lot of good calls and then a lot of like good value bets that I wouldn't have thought of. Like, it's interesting where you can do something like this, and even though we only played a couple hundred hands, there were several where I was like quite shocked by what it did, and then after thinking about it a little more, it was just like, oh, that's like a pretty interesting play that I just wouldn't have thought of. It's interesting to see just how amazing these programs can get, just playing against themselves and using their learning algorithms. Okay, so here's something that we talked about briefly, but it might not be a bad idea to talk about it again. The DIJN asks how hard it'd be to make a three-handed version of the bot, and then I guess also what's maybe answer like what's sort of in the works with that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So going to multi-way has two problems, right? The first is just that the size of the computation gets bigger, so it's a tougher problem to solve. But the second one is that a lot of the mathematical foundation that DeepStack relies on, and actually all of the poker bots rely on, kind of falls apart. If you're playing a heads-up game, if you're trying to play GTO, if you do it properly, you can guarantee that you can't lose on average against any opponent, even someone that knows your strategy. And that's really the motivation behind all of the heads-up bots. Like, that's just a really strong guarantee if you can do it. And the problem is that that doesn't apply at all in a multi-way game. So a Nash equilibrium still exists, like GTO still exists in multi-way. It's just that even if you found one, it wouldn't be useful. Because if your two opponents gang up on you, or even if they just have different strategies, like if they're each playing what they think is GTO, you can still lose, and there's just no way to guarantee that you can't lose. We have done a lot of work in the past on multi-way. For example, in 3-player limit, we wrote a lot of papers and did a lot of work on that. And even though we can't guarantee, that we can't lose, or the same type of normal GTO things, what we do know is that the algorithm that we use, like that's kind of at the core of DeepStack here, still runs, and it seems to produce strategies that play really well in multiplayer. Like we've played them against poker pros that we know, and they've at least said that the strategies look good. So we think it's still possible, and going to 6-player is definitely our next step. That's what we're going to look at over the next year or two. We think that the advances that we made in DeepStack, where it doesn't have to solve the whole game at once, it can just solve little bits of it for whatever part of the game it's currently in. I think that's going to be really important for multi-way. So we're going to keep working on it. We think we might, maybe even as little as 2 years, be human pro caliber in multi-way.
That's so impressive.
We've also, just to back off that a little, we've also been saying for about the last 4 years that we're probably 6 months away in heads-up no limit. So it took us a long time in heads-up no limit to get to where we are now.
Right. Yeah. No. I imagine it's tough to sort of predict some of these things, I guess. So there's a couple questions in chat about AIs in general, or about basically questions for you guys specifically. If you guys see any that you want to answer, let me know. Like I don't want to read out a question and be like, because I don't even know what a lot of the words mean, basically. So if you want to go over some of those, there may be 20 messages ago. If any of those you think are worth answering, feel free to just answer whatever, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's see. I'm just going to do the ones specifically about poker about this bot for now.
Okay.
Let's see. NoRemac11 asks, does it use counterfactual regret minimization? Yep, CFR is a big part of it. CFR is what drove all the earlier bots, like Arzan, Libratus, and all the other strong ones too. DeepStack is about half CFR, so half the same algorithm that we used to use, and it uses neural nets to make things fast and to get away from the betting attacks that used to really cripple the earlier bots. So we have a paper describing it on deepstack.ai. Sitka and Visual asks, can anyone take on DeepStack AI? For right now, it's only the people that we invite to play. We don't have a public one yet, but we're thinking about it. our heads-up limit bot is available for anyone to play against. And Ghost of M posted the link. What else?
Oh, JVC Feel asks, if you were an online heads-up pro, would you be worried? I would be, and I would have started to get worried, probably 3 years ago. Like there are various bots that even a lot of the current heads-up regs have been using that I'm assuming are a fair bit weaker than this, which have been pretty common for even a few years now. Yeah, I think that basically for an online heads-up player, I think it's kind of a scary position to be in, where we're so close to stuff like this being used by a large amount of players, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of tough, but also kind of inevitable that when you're doing something where a lot of like money changes hands that humans aren't particularly good at big picture, that you can't survive off of just like your intuition forever, basically.
I think that's just about it for the questions. Like, someone asks if the bot recognizes sudden changes in the opponent's game. It doesn't. This one was just playing GTO every hand, so it's not trying to adapt or do opponent modeling.
Yeah, it looks like that's about it for the questions. I just want to say to Michael and the rest of your team, I really appreciate getting this opportunity. This has been a lot of fun. I think it's fun thinking about poker, trying to compete against an opponent that has come from a completely different school of poker than you've come from, and it's interesting trying to tackle that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and thank you again for playing. Like, this was super fun this afternoon. Another loss, which is I don't know, kind of actually still fun for us, right? Like, there's still work to do and more matches to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though I won over 250 hand sample, I would, if I saw this thing sitting in the heads up lobbies, I wouldn't be lining up to play it anytime soon. All right. I'm gonna wrap up the stream. To all the viewers, thank you guys for coming by. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the support, and hopefully you guys learn a little bit more about this AI and AIs in general. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for playing.
Yeah, thank you.